Welcome to Update 5 of building a Factory 5 Mark V Roadster. So it's been a few weeks since I updated you. There's been a lot happening, but probably not at the pace I would have liked it to, only because I had to make a few decisions before moving forward, some of which required me to take a few things apart and put it back together again. So let's talk about all that. So a few things I've been able to accomplish since the last time we spoke. Firstly, I got the calipers painted, hung the calipers in my garage, applied the G2 epoxy paint, two-part epoxy, so it's goes on pretty easily, honestly. I bought 2 jars of paint because I was thinking that these calipers were going to probably take more than what looks to be about 4 ounces of paint. I can tell you, I went through 1 jar. So for all 4 calipers, I did the calipers and the anchors on all 4 corners, 4 ounces. The jar that comes with it was plenty of paint to get the job done. In fact, I had a little left over afterwards. So if you're doing something similar to this and you're thinking about it, just order 1 jar and do it. It turned out pretty well. I'm overall pretty happy with the way it worked out. And yeah, looks good. My son and I tackled getting the stabilizer bar mounted on the vehicle. It wasn't, I mean, last time you saw it, it was dangling down. I was waiting to powder coat a few brackets so I could get to mounting the stay bar back up. Ran into one issue where the bracket goes over. So the bracket, there's like an adapter bracket that goes to the stabilizer bar specifically for the rear. And that adapter bracket, when you put it on, it reduces your access to the toe link inboard stud. So my suggestion is if you're going to install the rear stay bar in your specific application, put the stabilizer bar in before you actually install your axle shafts, right? So before you put the CVs in place, it just gives you a little more room to work, a little more room to torque the joint down. I started running out of room real quick. My torque wrench wouldn't fit in there. I couldn't get the range of movement I needed. I needed to get the torque wrench a little further away so I could get some more movement. The structure itself kind of blocks you. So if you haven't done so already, yeah, think about that, getting that stay bar in before you put the drive shaft in. Other than that, went in pretty easily. No real complaints other than the fact that the bolts were a little bit short, but it sounds like maybe even Factory 5 is starting to ship out some longer bolts to some of my buddies that got Mark 5s as well. So they're correcting the problem and moving on. So up front, I tackled the pedal box. So the pedal box, while I was kind of waiting for a few other things to kind of figure them out, I decided to go and start assembling the pedal box. It was the next thing up in the manual. And yeah, the pedal box went together pretty well. There was a little bit of shimming that needed to happen. I noticed from side to side, you got 2 mounting points on the pedal box. You got one on the inboard side, one on the outboard side. I noticed the one on the outboard side needed to be shimmed up a little bit just to get a good level install. But other than that, yeah, it went pretty well. I put the master cylinders, attached the master cylinders onto it, got all my bracketry powder coated. That's going to be the Coyote adaptation or the hydraulic clutch. And got it up and got it running. So it's good to go, we're done. The other thing I got done while I was in the pedal box is started getting my steering shaft, the half shafts, routed and in place. There's a few things that are kind of blocking me from finalizing that, which is I got to take off the front panel where the steering shaft goes through the pedal box. And yeah, we're gonna have to do something with that. It's either gonna be powder coated, ceramic coated, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what I wanna do, but we're getting there. So I'd say the last major buildup that I've done since the last video is the parking brake system. I started routing the cables, we assembled the mechanism, and installed it into the vehicle. So my son and I sat down one evening and just went through the instructions page by page, put the whole mechanism together, mounted it up to the vehicle. Love the position of it. It's on top of the transmission tunnel instead of off to the side. If for those that don't know, it's usually mounted on the side of the Cobras into the passenger, the passenger space. So being that this car is such a tight fit for most people, I think having it on the trans tunnel and on top instead of off to the side is going to be a nice addition. Not to mention it's just easier to find the lever and use it when you need to. So yeah, so I've made a few directional changes. I think this vehicle kind of lends itself because you're building it up from nothing to something, right? Everything's in sequence. And I was getting a little nervous because we're getting to the point where I need to start putting some of these body panels back in place and riveting them down. There was a few lingering things that were on my mind that I needed to address. The first was the fuel system. So the fuel system, I went completely through. I've already talked a little bit about this. I got the evaporative emissions canister mounted. I decided to put kind of central in the chassis in the rear, just above the differential. It does slightly touch off on the structure that's attaching the rear diff mounting point. So what I decided to do is I put some foam material. I got some adhesive back foam material, kind of isolated that touch condition so we don't have any downstream vibration or noise issues coming off the evaporative emissions canister. I started looking at solutions for routing the fuel lines and the filter. The system that came with the Factory 5 is a quick connect system, right? It's very much an OEM style quick connect filter and quick connect EFI in-tank pump. I didn't like the solution. Where I wanted to put the filter for serviceability, the line, it comes with this OEM line, which really isn't made for this application. I think it may work. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have made this work, and quite happy with it. Myself, I was a little worried. I was worried that I was going to be putting a weird pressure on the quick connects, that I had to worry about downstream leaks. The whole system, it seemed like this was an opportunity to fix a problem before it starts, if that makes sense, before it gets really complex and you got to take panels off to fix a problem. Let's just do it now, spend the money now, and get myself out of a situation where I'm going to be screwing around with the fuel system after we start getting further into this build. So what I ended up doing is I ended up going to an AN style fittings instead of the quick connects. I ditched the Ford filter. I ditched the EFI intake system and went to an Aeromotive fuel pump. Installed that in, and yeah, it's nice. It's got an AN connection right at the pump. The inline filter is going to have an AN connection. I can put this filter anywhere I want and just kind of route some line out to it. What I did do as an alternative, I was thinking about doing hard lines for the fuel system. I decided to go with soft lines. I found some soft lines which are steel braided with a nylon outer braiding, just to kind of let it, not stand out too much in the frame. Everything on this build is going to be black and red. I kind of wanted to keep that theme as much as I can. So yeah, I went to a new filter system, a new pump system for the fuel system, and I'm going to start routing the fuels now. The next modification I made was to the tie rod ends. So the tie rod ends on this vehicle, it's not quite sure who Factory 5 uses. I would assume it's a Mustang front steering, but I might be wrong. But I'm using a power steering setup. In the instructions, what they tell you to do is they tell you to trim the tie rod ends down a bit, just to give you some more adjustment range in the outer tie rods, right? So they screw over the tie rod ends. I talked to a few people. I had been thinking about doing it for a while. I decided to go with Moog. tie rod ends, and honestly, super happy with them. The Moogs, they're actually opened on the bottom, so they have like an open cavity that the inner tie rod screws into. It's totally free. You don't have to trim anything off the inner tie rod. Not that that's a big deal, but I figured downstream, I'd rather have all that tie rod there and have the ability to use any tie rod end that I want if I ever have to replace it, rather than trimming something down and kind of being forced into one specific tie rod that God only knows I'll probably forget the part number somewhere down the road anyways. But so I went with Moogs. Very happy that overall the construction of them seems to be a little bit better. The boot seems to be, stay on the tie rod end a little better. Everything fit up. I'm real happy with that change up. Okay, well, parking brakes is one of the last systems that I really had to struggle through a little bit. I opted for the 11.65 brakes on this vehicle, which is, we'll call that the standard setup for this vehicle. You have an optional 13-inch brake for the rear, which is, I think, a Mustang Cobra type style brake. And then you have, of course, the Willwoods. Willwoods, I didn't opt for the Willwoods. I knew I wasn't going to be able to get the benefit of the Willwoods for the type of driving I'm going to do. I thought the 13-inch was probably not a bad compromise, but bear with me. My reasoning's pretty crazy, and it'll probably seem crazy to a lot of people. I wanted symmetry from front to rear, right? My fronts are roughly 1165, my rears are 1165. The calipers, radially are about the same distance away. So when you see the calipers underneath the rims, they'll look the same relatively from front to rear. One won't be way out and one a little further towards the center of the center line of the rim. So it seems stupid, but a little bit of symmetry. I knew the brakes were going to be plenty good, especially since I opted for the remote vacuum booster on this vehicle. So yeah, but with that decision came some challenges. The rear brakes, as you can kind of see in the background right there, right? The 13-inch almost sit dead on top of the center line of the wheel. The 13-inch set more in I would call it a traditional orientation for this vehicle, or most vehicles for that matter. They're a little bit rotated down on the radius of the rim. The problem, which is not a problem in general, the only issue comes is where the parking brake goes in and attaches to the rear caliper. It gets super close to the CV, the inboard or outboard CV, which is going right through the knuckle, right? So the cable, if I just let it sit there on its own without trying to tie it back a little bit or manage it somehow, would almost be sitting or is sitting directly onto the axle, right? So it's going to be sitting on something that's rotating, so that's not a great thing. So I've started looking at doing some fabrication of some brackets. So I'm starting to enter this phase where things aren't fitting the way I want them to fit, or not the way they're spec'd to fit, and you're going to have to pivot a little bit. And I knew this was coming. The easy stuff's over. Bolting things together is over. This is where the aspect of how good do you want it to work and look at the end of the day starts playing a toll. So yeah, parking brakes are a little bit of a challenge. I'm kind of working through them still. They're getting there. So with all the stuff I've been doing, I'm getting ready to route really all the brake hoses and maybe even start bending up some of the brake lines. It'll be really nice to see what it looks like with wheels. So I did order my rims. They should be here I think the next time you see an update, there should be some new rims. I did not opt for the Hillebrands on this vehicle. I went with a aftermarket rim, which is going to be blacked out and should look pretty cool for this build. Well, that's update number 5 for you. We're progressing slow. I don't know, slow-ish. I think some people this might be fast, some people it might be slow. It's progressing at the speed that I want it to progress at. So I feel pretty good about it. Either way, I'm doing everything that I can to possibly forecast any issues later on. I'm trying to set it up in a way that makes sense, and yeah, it's fun. It's 100%. I mean, even though you buy this kit from Factory 5, they ship you all these parts. You find as you get through this build that it really becomes yours, right? It's no longer just Factory 5s anymore, because you're fabricating things up, you're making decision changes, and you're rolling with it. So yeah, it's I'm enjoying it. I am officially 225 pages into the build. It's hard to even believe. I think there's 556, 560 pages of the manual. So yeah, I'm not halfway through the build. Obviously, I feel like I'm maybe more like 20% through the whole process. But man, it's kind of crazy to think in the matter of a few months that I am 225 pages into this build. It's starting to go. I mean, it's starting to look like a car. I think when you see it next time, you'll see some. I'll throw the wheels on so you can get a feel for the look I'm going for. Yeah, that's it's update 5. Hope you guys are enjoying the ride. I'll see you next time. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to tell you, got my side pipes in. Have a look. They're pretty sweet. Oh yeah.